troops. I want
Duterte hinted at changes to the bilateral agreement with Washington, allowing for U.S. forces to be stationed in the Philippines.
It's like saying, I am a dog on a leash. That is what America wants me to be. But I would never allow our dignity and honor to be just like a doormat before the international public. I will not allow it.
At a gathering of the Japan-Philippines Parliamentarians Friendship League, Duterte raised the possibility of a clash between a rising China and the United States or other countries. He expressed a desire to work with Japan, saying that Tokyo and Manila need to join hands. Earlier this evening, Duterte set off for his meeting with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The meeting took place at the Prime Minister's official residence. Abe was at the entrance to welcome the president. In contrast to his earlier meetings with business leaders, the Philippine president put on a jacket and tie for this occasion. Abe says he hopes that the visit by President Duterte would lead to a dramatic development in relations between the two countries. Duterte touched on China's building of bases in the South China Sea, which was raised at the outset of the talks.
We are good. And you can rest assured, and I give you my word, that we will stand when the time comes.
Duterte expressed a desire to work with Japan for a peaceful resolution of the issue according to the rule of law. The two leaders subsequently made a joint announcement to the press. Abe touched on the South China Sea, saying it is a matter with direct bearing on the peace and stability of the region and of concern for the international community as a whole. Abe says regarding the recent ruling by an arbitration tribunal in The Hague, they affirmed that maritime disputes should not resort to the use of threat or force. He says they affirmed the importance of resolving the issue peacefully according to the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and so on. Abe says Japan, moreover, welcomes President Duterte's recent visit to China and his efforts to improve relations between Beijing and Manila.
The Philippines will continue to work closely with Japan on issues of common concern in the region and uphold the shared values of democracy, adherence to the rule of law, and the peaceful settlement of disputes, including the South China Sea.
The two leaders said they had reached agreements for Japan to provide 2 large patrol vessels to the Philippines and for Japan to provide yen loans to help the less developed parts of the Philippines. The two leaders subsequently held another meeting with only a small number of officials present. It lasted for about an hour. Abe and Duterte are now attending a dinner.
We're joined by our reporter Manabu Takigawa, who covers the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and our Manila Bureau Chief Keiji Himeno. The South China Sea issue. At the beginning of the meeting, President Duterte said that he will always stand on Japan's side. Does that mean the two leaders were able to share common perception on this matter? Prime Minister Abe, in the joint news conference, said that the two leaders were able to conduct significant and meaningful exchange of views about regional peace and security. And in the smaller meeting that followed, this matter was discussed. And the details of this meeting have not been disclosed, saying that this was a meeting just to share personal views. The smaller meeting was held because Prime Minister Abe wanted an opportunity to speak about this matter with the President in a very candid manner, and these talks went on for twice as long as scheduled. So the Japanese government officials say that they believe that in-depth talks were held on this matter. And how does the Philippine side regard and think of the meeting? President Duterte has said that he came to Japan to thank Japan. And in today's joint conference, he said that no aid is more effective and greater than Japanese aid, and expressed his gratitude. And about the contribution of Japanese patrol vessels and the building of defense cooperation with Japan, he is grateful. But before coming to Japan, President Duterte went to China, and he tried to improve ties with China. And what is the attitude is he trying to take towards China and to Japan? Overall, I think Manila has shown that Japan and China are both important, and it will try to be equally close to both countries. Equally close, that's right. Because there are two different factors at play here. The first, economically, it wants to build good ties with both Japan and China, but last week, China pledged a large amount of assistance to the Philippines. So the Philippines has great expectations economically from China. And President Duterte has said that he hopes to continue developing the defense cooperation with Japan, which has been strengthened over the past few years. So in that area, Japan is ahead of China, with whom the Philippines is just starting to start off on a confidence-building phase. And it shows in his dress, too. Today, for formal occasions, he usually wears the balon tagalog, the Philippine cultural attire. But last week in China and today in Japan, he wore a suit, which he usually doesn't, which means that he considers these occasions important. And the United States, which is both an ally of the Philippines and of Japan, the United States has expressed concern about the human rights issues. We do not know whether this human rights issue was dealt with in the smaller meeting, but at least during the other meetings, there was no reference made to the human rights issues. The international community is becoming increasingly critical of the human rights issue, so Japan cannot be completely indifferent. But cracking down on drug trafficking and drug abuse is a policy that President Duterte firmly believes in. So the Japanese government is trying very hard to deal with this matter very sensitively. So Japan placed more emphasis this time on building the personal relationship between the two leaders and to exchange candid views on the South China Sea situation. And President Duterte has said that it might try to separate itself from the United States, but what sort of relationship is he trying to build with the United States? On the relationship with the United States, President Duterte has said that it will not completely sever its relations with the United States. But currently there is a wide gap between the two countries, and he shows no signs of moving back closer. And the day before yesterday, I interviewed President Duterte, and I asked him what sort of relationship he would like to build with the next president, the one following President Obama. President Duterte said he expects nothing from the next president, and he did not try to hide his suspicions and distrust towards the United States. And today also, he said that he wants the U.S. troops out of the Philippines within 2 years. So it is very unlikely that President Duterte will try to improve relations with the United States, that he will make moves from his side. So the focus will be on how the United States will respond to this situation. And if the relationship between the United States and Philippines becomes awkward, Japan will be caught in the middle, and that would be awkward too. But the Japanese government can also serve as a bridge. The Japanese government wants to contribute actively to peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region. So it believes that it is important to play the role of coordinating between the Philippines and the United States. But even after arriving in Japan, President Duterte has continued to make inappropriate remarks about the United States, and depending on who he talks to, what he says differs. So it will be important to judge carefully what he truly means and what his intentions are. So the Japanese government, in line with national interest, plans to provide continued assistance to the Philippines and foster a relation of trust with President Duterte and play a role in stabilizing the relationship between the United States and the Philippines.
On Elise, that is what America wants me to be. But I would never allow our dignity and honor to be just like a doormat.
Earlier this evening, Duterte set off for his meeting with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The meeting took place at the Prime Minister's official residence. Abe was at the entrance.
So, I want...
Duterte hinted at changes to the bilateral agreement with Washington, allowing for U.S. forces to be stationed in the Philippines.
I am a dog.
He raised the possibility of a clash between a rising China and the United States or other countries. He expressed a desire to work with Japan, saying that Tokyo and Manila need to join hands
Before the international public. I will not allow it.
At a gathering of the Japan-Philippines Parliamentarians Friendship League, Duterte